Hello, everyone. This is Warhawk Beyond 2040, and welcome to another edition of the movie review series. And today we are joined once again with the one and only, the badass himself, Rex the Boss 11. How are you doing, brother?
I am very well, thank you, brother Warhawk. Hey guys, how's it going? Let's talk about Josh Whedon's Justice League.
So, this version of the Justice League movie came out in 2017, almost 6 years ago. Now, for those of you who are probably wondering, well, hang on a minute, didn't you guys do the Justice League already? Yes, me and Holiday did do a review of the Zack Snyder cut version of the Justice League about a few years ago, but Rex and I are going to be talking about the Joss Whedon version of the Justice League movie because we've kind of dropped slight hints about this. You know, we've made little passing references that we were going to talk about this, but I just think that it's only fitting that we talk about this version of the Justice League because we've always talked about all the other DCEU stuff, so it makes sense to get to this one because I always look at this movie as the beginning of the end for the DCEU. So, Rex, we'll start with you first. What was your reaction to seeing this version of the Justice League? We'll start with
Well,
you.
well, firstly, we just need to stop calling this we don't need to call the Snyder Cut the Snyder Cut. Let's just refer to that as the Justice League because that film
Yes.
was some shape or form of a version of the Justice League. Whether everything that took place before made sense or not because of the way that everything seemed to have came around, where some of the films were after, some of the films were before, who knows? But this, I'm unsure of what this film was, but this is definitely not the Justice League in my eyes. This was just an amalgamation of bad Warner Brothers decisions and bad casting, bad. I mean, I'm going to be perfectly honest. We may have found it here. The
Yes.
amalgamation of just awful scripting, awful production, terrible decisions behind the scenes. But
Absolutely.
because you can actually watch it and see it, it's like it's been completely overlooked. Oh, it's just a bad movie. No, this is horrendous. And I'm gonna be full on. The Snyder Cut makes this look like what happens when you get a low budget version of the same film, if you know what I mean. Like
Yeah.
imagine you just get like a straight to DVD version of a film that's coming out 3 months after that film or 3 months before that film comes out, and you get tricked into thinking that this is the film, and it's just an awful version of it. This is what this film feels like. When I first heard about it, I was clearly waiting for it and excited about it because in my mind I thought, oh well, this is where they're leading to. But as we both know, they hadn't even got halfway through introducing the characters or the people that needed to be in this movie. We didn't have the origin story to the Flash. We didn't have the origin story to the Aquaman. We clearly were not getting the origin story to the Cyborg.
No.
Wonder Woman had been massively successful, but this just felt like they had rushed massively into this film. It's I can. It's nice to be able to look at what I was thinking at the time to what actually I'm thinking now, which is at the time I was thinking, oh, the Justice League, but I still wasn't stupid. This would have been like in the Arrowverse, them having Arrow, then the Flash, and then immediately getting the Justice League on TV. And it's like, well, how did we get here? How did we go from two people, which was Batman and Superman, then Wonder Woman, and then all of a sudden we got six people? We've got no idea how these other three people, apart from these 2.5 minute clips that we've seen in previous movies of potentially how these people might have become the people that they are.
No, of course, totally. It was definitely a rush job for sure.
I
Um,
honestly think that this may be, it's not a worse film than Green Lantern, as in what you're seeing on the screen,
no, it's a
but
bit different.
everything patched in with this film. This was just a bad amalgamation of decisions, just scripting, casting. It made the people who we've actually respected in the roles of some of these characters look awful in
Oh,
their casting.
we will touch upon as we go along. Absolutely. My thoughts to the Justice League for me was initially was a very big deal, having grown up with the animated series and the comic books as well. I really wanted to see this on the big screen, but at the
Mm.
same time, going into this movie, I questioned, the logic and the decision behind this. I thought, okay, we're getting a Justice League movie, that's great, but however, we've not fully established everybody else. I mean,
Yeah, like yo, we've already failed with one character that we're not even going to get into because he's not going to be part of it, which was the Green Lantern.
there you
So
go.
that was always a head scratchy thing of, well, so we're not getting the Lantern Corps in there because you messed up the Lantern film 5 years ago.
Yep,
Then the three other characters that you're adding in are unknown to the cinematic universe. Unknown. Like, if
exactly.
anything, it should have probably been Cyborg and the Flash that were in Batman versus Superman rather than
Yep.
Wonder Woman. Like, because why on earth would you put two characters so deep into their roles? Bearing in mind, we're only going to be getting the Flash film in like 2 months' time. 2 months'
Oh,
time. And this guy was already in this film
I know.
7 years ago. Like, what 6 years ago? What's going off?
I know. The thing with the Justice League movie going in, as I said, it was a big deal. And then I learned about halfway through that Zack Snyder was leaving because his daughter had died and Joss Whedon was taking over. Now, everyone who knows Joss Whedon, he was a big part of the MCU in its early
Yeah,
days.
Marvel, way
Marvel,
too Marvel. I should have said that in my early intro. One thing that I did not expect, and I there was not one thought in my mind said that any DC film would be so marvelized than this one.
absolutely, definitely.
Completely what they took from Snyder. How could you watch that and then turn it into what you turned it into? What part of that was you? Do you know where I'm coming from?
No,
What you what
absolutely,
what what
totally.
is he seeing to what we're seeing?
Well,
Is
it's like how do I put this? It's like turning the lights on and you realize, oh my God, what am I looking at here? That's kind of what it felt like to me.
he
These
has to surely
characters.
be the one person, the only person that's seen that coming from this. I mean, did it? I need to ask this thing because you just mentioned it. So they just got rid of Zack Snyder. Not what is your actual idea here, Zach? They
Well,
just got rid of him.
well, what happened was he halfway through production pre-production while they were putting this together, he suffered a death in his family, and understandably, he chose to step away from this project, which is fair enough. He had a terrible death in the family, and then they needed to get the movie done. So what they did was Warner Brothers, they brought in Joss Whedon to finish the movie.
That's
The,
to me, that's absolute madness.
so they
So right,
completely
you needed to get this film done,
yes,
but yet the Flash that should have come out before this film clearly has been delayed for years, years and years and years. Like, I understand the Blue Beetle was supposed to be a HBO and it's gone to cinematic now. Fair enough, yeah, because it looks half decent to some people, yeah.
yeah.
But the Flash has clearly had mad production problems for nearly 2 decades, yeah. But this version of the Flash, we knew this was being filmed at the same time that the Justice League was being filmed. So why on earth was that film not just rushed forward, regardless of what that turned out to be? And then now, 5 years later, we're getting the Justice League film that we should have got 5 years ago. Well, sorry, we should have never got 5 years ago. We should have got 2 years ago. But by that time, you would imagine that because of the pandemic, it would have been delayed. I
Yeah.
would have had no problem in 2023 lining up saying, right, we waited 5 years. Can we now actually see all five of these people? Because we would have probably had the other movies come through by now. Can we see all of these five other people with Batman link up and see what happens? You know what I mean? Let's see what actually happens with this Justice League. To be talking about this, 6 years later, that's head scratching, Warhawk. How did this movie even come about that quickly?
Well, I mean, you can kind of get the sense when you watch this movie, they were clearly trying to play catch up with Marvel because
Cash grab, like
Just yeah, of course, cash
you've
grab.
skipped the first 9 movies and gone to like the first Avengers. Like, where's the 7 or 8 movies that came before that?
Exactly.
At least 4. You know what I mean? At least give us 3 or 4. Honestly, we've spoken about this before.
Yeah.
They clearly had no plan by the Superman film, Man of Steel. They had no plan to make a universe.
There was no plan to make a universe. It was just to
After
make a
after Dark Knight, they used that money to make Superman, and they used that money to make a few other movies. They had no plan to make a Justice League movie. Yeah,
no.
They clearly wanted to reboot everything around the Suicide Squad and all these weird things that have kind of worked now, but they didn't work. We didn't know if they were going to work then.
No.
They had no intention of building the same thing as Marvel. And where was they going to get that from? Because the best idea that they ever brought to life, and I'll say this in every single DC, so shout out to people that are waiting for this, every single DC movie review, I will say this same thing. For every single DC project, I will say this. The biggest problem that we have with DC is they cancelled the one thing that they should have given us, which was a movie with Deathstroke as the villain.
Yes.
It's absolutely absurd that we are still sitting here in 2023. And I am going to spend the majority of this being nasty to anyone that was involved in the production, or because it's not the actor's fault.
No.
These people were given these roles and they were asked to perform these roles for years. And you said it on your channel recently, Warhawk, about Gal Gadot. And obviously we're big fans of Gal Gadot for multiple reasons. But she has now defined the role of Wonder Woman. And I'm sure that Jason Momoa will steal the rights to not the legal rights, but the mental rights to Aquaman as soon as he's on that screen in this next movie. Because the fact is, once you get in there once or twice with a character that's never been seen before, you kind of actually are that character.
Oh yeah, of course, absolutely.
And this is the thing that the Batmans have suffered from, the Supermans have suffered from, because people have played them before. And then we've had this debate over who's the best for years. You know, and I know it's always subjective.
Yes.
I may say that Bale was the best Batman. Other people might say it's somebody else. Now, weirdly enough, we're going to get to see a Batman actually for the first time reprise his role years and years later, which says to me, at least with DC, never say never.
Yes, that's right. Anyone can come back to a role.
Sony figured that one out 15 years ago with the X-Men because of what they can do with Spider-Man and the X-Men. They can just bring characters and they can have the same character, but different universes characters in the same film. So you can get Nicholas and Kelsey Grammer as the Beast in the same movie if you want, because of the way that their timeline and the paradox and all that works. And I feel like DC could have absolutely exploited this with all this Flash time traveling. We could have had multiple versions of Batman in the same universe. We should have got one of those types of movies way before they did a Batman versus Superman thing. All those types of things have cost DC massively when it comes to decision making. And what the Zack Snyder, Joss Whedon thing is mind blowing to me. And I've waited to hear that from you to see what you said about that, because it's mad. Like, you're telling me that as a fan, it doesn't hurt you like it hurts me. Why was this Justice League movie not the end game? The very, very end game. Not 2 years in, Warhawk. I'm talking like 8 years, 9 years in.
It's because they wanted to, compete with the Avengers. They saw the success of Marvel. They saw that they built up the MCU, and they thought, well, we can do that. We've got the iconic names. Yes, you've got the iconic names, but you haven't spent any time.
Yeah, I was just going to say, you can't do that in 5 years or less.
No.
Even if you give us 3 movies a year, you can't do that in 5 movies or less.
No, you can't.
How many movies had we got from Marvel by the time the Avengers actually came around? There must have been at least 8.
You got 2 Iron Man movies, 1 Captain America movie, 1 Thor movie, and 1 Incredible Hulk movie. So altogether, that's about, I'm going to say that's about 5. I'll say that's about 5 or 6.
And although it's not the same universe, you kind of have to count in, because eventually they did bring Spider-Man in. The origins of these characters had been built for years, Warhawk.
Yeah.
The origins of these characters. We said this years ago. It didn't really matter what Spider-Man turned up like in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, because we already knew what Spider-Man was.
Yes, that's right.
But if you're just gonna throw random characters into the mix like Cyborg, you gotta make them real good.
Of course, and you got to make people care about them because, like you said, they're unknown.
I also preferred like the way that Snyder was looking at Cyborg, as in Cyborg's helpful, but he's not really on their team. Something tells me that Snyder's universe was leading to Cyborg, like he would step aside and other, maybe the Green Lantern, other people would come in and take his role. He'd be a go-to for different types of situations. You know what I mean? Like, I felt like the way that they built Cyborg in this version compared to what they were actually supposed to do with Cyborg was head scratching. Same with the Flash. Aquaman, the obviously the jury's still out because he's going to get a second movie. So you kind of have to wait to see if they do the Wonder Woman 1984 thing with Aquaman. And if they do, obviously, we'll probably look back and be negative about that.
Yeah, probably.
But
I
they
mean,
didn't do enough time, not enough time, not enough investment. Like, I get this Batman and Superman thing. They're very powerful characters. So you add in Wonder Woman and then you have a fantastic Wonder Woman film. So it's almost like, yeah, you can see where they were probably thinking, oh, this is going to work. But at that
yeah,
time there, surely when Zack Snyder's got this problem, you then think, you know what? Maybe this would be a good time for us to do what we would have done 20 years ago and just say, let's put this on ice for 3 more years. Let's get Ezra in there with this. Let's get Jason in there with this. And then you're almost certain by the time the second Wonder Woman film comes around, Cyborg's film's in production then.
yeah, totally. At least that way you've got him established and ready to go. But it was just a car crash. Even when you
This
look,
was really bad.
this
Like,
was
just because of what you know that the everything is, when you have to factor in everything, this was really bad.
oh, absolutely. Even for their standards, you just think, what happened? You know, it's one of those things you would have loved to have been a fly on the wall in that meeting room. What was they thinking when they was putting all this together?
I mean, they also, I think we've overlooked the fact as well. I don't think this has been spoken about, but they did this before with Tim Burton and Joel Schumacher.
More so,
You don't
Tim
take
Burton.
one man's idea and give it to another person unless you can certifiably guarantee that
That
they are very similar thinking people.
yes,
If you take something that's supposed to be dark and gritty and then turn it into something that's neon and all that, that we seen what happened with that with Batman Forever and Batman and Robin, how you can take the universe that somebody else had started to build, take out all of the elements that you think don't sell toys and all that, and then add in all this stuff that people might like, and looking back it might not have actually been that bad.
no,
So they'd already done this before. So to even have any decision that was the first thing that should have happened when Zack Snyder's child had the tragedy is cancel the movie now.
yeah, put it on ice.
Because he still had way more footage as well, you know.
Oh yeah, I mean, absolutely. He had a whole film, all well, not finished, but he had a lot of footage.
But yeah,
So
can we just focus on just, because I'm sure you've got some bits in your head. Can we just focus mainly on the Joss Whedon parts of this movie, the bits that are not in the Justice League Snyder Cut, the stuff that Snyder's not got any access to, the stuff that Joss Whedon decided to bring to the cinematic screen through his own thinking? Because I even feel
well,
that some of the parts of this film that are not Zack Snyder's, you can see the actors are not truly knowing what the fuck's going on.
well, I mean, as bad as this film was, and a lot of it was bad, there were some bits that weren't too bad. We're going to start with one scene. Right at the beginning of the movie, you have Gotham City and you have Batman going after a parademon. Now, at first, when I saw this, I thought, okay, this is actually a pretty good scene. Kind of reminds me of that the Arkham City games. You know, the mood,
Mm.
the music, and everything. And you see him going after a parademon. My first initial reaction was, oh, this is Firefly. Okay, so we're getting a Firefly cameo to kick things off, but it wasn't. It was a parademon, one of Darkseid's minions, and yeah, it was not a bad opening scene. I thought it was pretty good. I thought, okay, we're off to reasonable good start. Ben Affleck as Batman doing his thing, and then this is where the issue starts. He mentions in that scene, prep up the jet, Alfred. We're heading north tonight. I thought, okay, fair enough. We're going up north, and then the next scene you see is Bruce Wayne's got a full beard and everything. So I saw that scene. I thought, well, this clearly should have been the opening scene. Bruce Wayne looking for Aquaman. He's got a full beard. This should have been 6 months after his meeting with Amanda Waller, and that's where the issue starts. It just
jumped around.
Exactly, they jumped around,
and then they fully retconned that scene as well in the actual Aquaman movie, which was just strange, like, because it leaves you with this brain rot of where does all this fit in then?
Yeah, you basically had scenes that were not like in proper order. It was like, okay, Batman's in Gotham. He's been tracking a parademon. That's fine. Him and Alfred could build upon that and try and look, see if there's more. And the next thing you know, he's up north talking with Arthur Curry. You just think, huh?
And it's because the parademon thing had not really been introduced to us yet. Like, we were madly skipping forward at this point. Like,
they were hinted at in Batman v Superman in Bruce Wayne's Nightmare.
Yeah.
That was the closest we got to Parademon's possible existence. But other than that, they were not established at all. They were not established. And then, you've got these other scenes in the movie, like you've got a great scene where you see Wonder Woman. I think she's in London, where she saves like a group of school kids. I thought that was a very good scene. Then there's one moment, don't get me wrong, guy to guy here, it's nice, but at the same time, it's not really what you want to see. They zoomed in slow motion of Gal Gadot's butt as Wonder Woman. Not that I'm complaining, but when you've had a successful film like Wonder Woman, this badass warrior, you're just kind of making her look a bit silly. Did you get what I mean?
Yeah, they made it look like there was no time where they were shooting these scenes all over the place. If, like, I've said this about wrestling before, and I'm even getting deja vu now, because I'm sure I've said this to you before. There was moments where it felt like they had filmed one thing in 2015, and then another thing in like early 2017 or whatever. It was weird.
Yeah.
Like, the filming of this, the structure, obviously I understand that they had production issues, so one person had some of the bits and then all that type of stuff. But like you said, it felt like part of this movie was sitting over here, and then the rest of the movie was over here, but because it didn't flow into the scene after scene, it's like basically like me and you finding what we think is 250 clips of the missing Justice League film and then trying to splice it together ourselves.
Exactly.
Which bits, but it's like it's a jigsaw puzzle that clearly wasn't completed.
No, it was not, far from it. It was just a mess, an absolute mess. And there's one thing we need to touch upon. We've mentioned this in like previous reviews, but we got to mention this. The opening scene, just before the main scene we got with Batman, you see Superman talking to a group of kids. You don't see them, you just hear their voices. It was revealed later it was supposed to be Billy Batson, who is Shazam.
Yeah.
You see Superman talking to these kids, the mustache CGI'd out.
Yeah, and
it was horrible.
Deliberate focus on the S chest so that they have to focus on the face, but you can't miss it. His lips don't even look like they're moving at the same time.
It looks like, when you're trying to create a wrestler on a WWE game, the jawline and the head, when you have the default model. So when you create your wrestler, that's what he looked like. Not the body so much as the head. It's like the chin was all square, and it just looked weird. It just looked horrible, and it's become a recurring gag with a lot of fans. But it's ugly.
And can I also say as well, some of these opening scenes, they felt like they'd been put on 1.25, 1.3, 1.4 speed. Like, I don't know if they were supposed to have been filmed this quickly or put back on the screen this quickly. They seem like they should have been. I don't mean sped up as in like voices sounded squeaky, but do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
it was doo 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 doo. Everything just seemed to just hit from Batman on the rooftops catching the criminal doing whatever he was doing, Parademon, Alfred's talking. If you were eating popcorn at the start of this movie in the cinema, you would have missed 3 minutes of this movie instantly before you knew what was going on.
exactly. And then then after that, you got that scene with Bruce Wayne and Arthur Curry, which was not a bad scene, and you got everyone laughing at Bruce, and
You have to have that scene as well, of course, to build who
yeah,
people are.
you had everyone in the village laughing at Bruce Wayne, and like Bruce Wayne's supposed to be like a super serious guy, and he's standing there like, all goofy, like, "Hey guys, I'm Bruce Wayne. Yeah, I've got money." You're just thinking, hang on a minute here. How did we go from Bruce Wayne, super serious, the guy who hates clowns, as he hinted at, to this smiley Bruce Wayne? What happened there? It was horrible. It was horrible, and yeah, it just gets worse from there. And I think with this movie, I think there was about maybe 10% of Snyder footage, and the rest was all what we got, really. And it just got worse as the film progressed. It just got worse, but seemed like the people who were the focal point of these issues, no fault of theirs, obviously, was Gal Gadot, Ben Affleck, and Ezra Miller. They seem to be the focal point of, how shall I put it, like bad scenes and bad dialogue. What would you say?
Ezra being this virgin, twitchy, obsessed with anything, like teenage kid that cannot have anyone that's female around him. Like, obviously his head just explodes around her and he falls apart.
Yeah.
I could have done without that, because that's what I mean. We didn't get enough time. We definitely should have had a Flash movie to introduce us to the wacky and less dramified and emotional version of the Flash, because all we'd seen on TV for the last 6 years with Grant Gustin was a very emotional, quite dark version of the Flash when you think about it. Emotional and emotionally unstable version of the Flash.
Yeah, of course. I mean, when I first saw that scene where Bruce goes to recruit Barry Allen, I'm not joking. If you didn't know who the Flash was, you probably thought, oh, he's probably going to recruit Robin, because he did not feel like the Flash to me. He did not look like Barry Allen. He just felt like Tim Drake. And Tim Drake's my favorite Robin, but that's who he felt like to me. Asking these corny questions. What are your superpowers again? I'm rich. I just thought, oh my god, it was just so silly. Not really words you would associate Ben Affleck's Batman with. Silly. Not really a word you would use. It was just, oh god, it's just giving me bad memories of those scenes. What was your thought on that one?
I think you were supposed to kind of get that vibe from this as well. Like, in this universe, Barry's there's going to be an element between Barry and Bruce. Now, we never got this really, but there is going to be an obvious, because of the age gap between these two characters in this universe. I feel that they were eventually, or probably should have eventually, got to the stage where, Bruce was doing a lot of which we're going to see in the Flash movie now.
Yeah.
Even though I think it's going to be the other Bruce, isn't it? Or is it still going to be, it's going to be a mixture of the two Bruces, isn't it? Like, let's be fair, this Flash movie is going to get a bit strange, yeah?
Yeah, it's going
I feel that this is what you are missing out on. Because you didn't get a Flash movie before, we're going to go back to this so many times as well in this. Because you didn't get a Flash movie, more than Cyborg and Aquaman at the time, because you didn't get a Flash movie, everything that Ezra Miller is doing in this film makes absolutely zero sense. Dude, just run fast. You know what I mean? Like, I'm sorry, it sounds very patronizing, but as a superhero, you've got one job, Barry. Just do it.
Just do it.
And I know that we now know, because we know the Flash, this version of Barry, he hasn't discovered that yet in his mind. He just knows he's fast. but he hasn't really discovered in that universe his purpose. He just knows that certain times he gets caught in certain situations
He runs
where
away.
his speed can save the day. But yet he hasn't been taught all this stuff. So now it makes sense now. But in this film, when you're watching this, it makes zero sense because we don't know anything about Barry Allen.
No, we don't.
Um,
The only thing I got the impression with Barry Allen, even going back to his brief cameo in the first Suicide Squad movie, I get the impression that Barry Allen hasn't been the Flash that long. I would say he's been the Flash for maybe just under a year and a half. I'm guessing that he's probably in his just coming towards his second year as the Flash because, as you say, he didn't have a clue what he was doing. Even said so later on in the movie. He said, "I've never been in a fight before. All I've ever done is just push a guy and run off. That's all I ever did. I've never actually
I've
been."
noticed online that there's a big emphasis because I think people have got the Grant Gustin Flash and the Team Flash ethic mixed up into this universe. And there's a lot of emphasis from a few years ago of like, why is Barry so useless in this film? It's like, because you have to understand that he hasn't got any of these people that we have come accustomed to be teaching him. He didn't have Harrison Wells. He didn't have any input from Eobard Thawne. He didn't have any input in this universe from any of them. At this point, the Barry we're seeing, even at the end of the Justice League movie, because the way that they filmed it, and I'm sure we'll find that in the Flash movie, like we know how he became Barry Allen, but in this universe, we'll find out exactly what they wanted you to see.
Yeah.
How and when he became the Flash.
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
going to be perfectly honest, bro. I don't know if he's even actually like. Did I miss it, or when does he become the Flash? Because is he the Flash in this movie?
Well, he's already the Flash, but they never explained how he became the Flash.
Like, I don't understand. Where does that come from? Like, have I missed a scene where they said, like, am I forgetting, overlooking a scene where he has a conversation and says, well, this is the name that I like?
No, they have never called him the Flash
At any
once.
point, is he ever even referred to as the Flash?
Nope, not once. He's
Because
just
this
called
is what I'm
Barry.
trying to say. I have to say this, and I've said this before to you. Very wrestling like here. Can we officially actually say that at this point that this version of Barry Allen is actually the Flash? Or is he just a kid with the powers of the Flash that hasn't yet developed any of that, moinka yet?
No, as I
Because
said,
I
I get
heard nothing of the Flash in this. I heard no mention of the word Flash.
no. As I said, I got the impression he's been doing this for nearly under a year and a half.
Mm.
He's a bit wet behind the ears. He doesn't know what he's doing. As you see over the course of the film, he falls over quite a bit, but very clumsily. Not really a word you'd use to describe the Flash as clumsy.
Well, it's like he hasn't done anything bad yet, and this is where I think that once again you needed a Flash movie because we needed to see how much power and how much responsibility that the Flash character can actually have once his feet start running. It's
Absolutely.
not just moving fast and running fast, but that's all that they made us think he was about. Any fan who knew nothing about the Flash leading into this movie would have walked out of that film and thought Quicksilver. Nothing more, nothing less.
And even Jason Momoa as Aquaman, they just made him into a goofball version of Thor, drinking beer and cracking jokes. Very different Aquaman to what we got in the Zack Snyder.
I feel like they knew exactly what his film was going to be like, very colourful and very what it was like.
Yes.
But it wasn't going to be terrible. So I feel like they
Oh.
almost gave you the idea of, and I'm going to be perfectly honest, they almost gave you the idea of he's very much more approachable than what, say, Batman is or Superman would be. You're going to get a whole different type of character with Aquaman. He's a bit of a mix and blend between the Flash and between Superman and Batman. He's a bit of an amalgamation of all of them. He's serious and he will knock you out, but he will still have fun and he likes to party and all that type of stuff, which kind of fits the character. It just, the only thing that I feel that they got wrong with Jason Momoa was they probably should have just had the guy fucking dye his hair blonde.
I think the most they did with him is they gave him a little blonde highlights. That's about they did.
Why?
They didn't do.
Why go halfway?
Might as well go all the way.
You may as well just get the guy to just don the blonde hair. Like, But then realistically, yeah, like they put in his film, they did put him in the green and the golden suit and that. So they got as far as that, didn't they? So
Yeah,
they
which
probably should have
we'll
just given
talk
him
about.
blonde hair. Like honestly, I can't see if Momoa's let himself be dressed up like that and all that type of stuff anyway. And there was quite a few comedy spots in the Aquaman movie, and I'm sure we'll get to it in the future, but there was quite a few comedy spots in that as well. So I feel like they've always kind of presented Aquaman as more comedic and slapstick, and I don't really give a damn. Like that's what you were
Yeah.
supposed to have with Aquaman. But once again, if we'd have got the Aquaman movie before this film, hindsight would have been a great thing to have looked at with Barry and with Aquaman. Maybe not so much Cyborg, but because he's just robotic, isn't he? Yeah, you're getting what you're getting with him. But with those
Oh,
two,
that's
once again, it was either too much personality or too much weirdness. There wasn't enough with Barry and with Jason Momoa. Maybe it's the actors. Who knows? Who knows? But
I don't think it was so much the actors. I think it was just the material that they had to work with because they were already working with Zack Snyder for quite a few years. So he's gone,
yeah,
and now they've had to completely work a whole new film, and they're just looking at it like, well, this is not what I was working on before.
yeah. And
What's
once
this?
again, we've had 5 or 6 years to look back on what exactly they could do in their roles. And obviously now Ezra gets his chance to show what he can do in his role. I just feel like the further we get away from this film, the more we're going to question and say, what was they thinking? Like, honestly, what was they thinking here? Because I think more importantly, looking at Ezra's performance in this film and what he was given, that would make me worry about the Flash's movie more than anything else
Oh, absolutely. As a
because
big
of the
fan of,
way that they treated him in this movie.
yeah, I mean, a Flash movie is something I've been wanting, and anyone who's listened to my stuff in the past, I've been wanting to see a Flash movie for years. So we're getting to see the Flash in the Justice League. I thought, okay, maybe we should have got a movie earlier, but hey, I'm happy we're getting the Flash on the big screen. Can't complain. And then you see Ezra Miller's performance, and me as a Flash fan, I sat there terrified. I thought, please tell me that's not what the Flash movie is going to be like. This idiot, and when you've watched the CW show of the Flash with Grant Gustin for so long, and you put it up against Ezra Miller, you just think they're nothing alike. That's my Barry Allen pointing to Grant Gustin in the corner. That's my Flash. That's how Flash should be. What's this? What the hell is this? Bear in mind that Grant Gustin has had nearly 5 or 6 years developing his character, going from Arrow to his own show. But with Ezra Miller, it was just horrible. It was just absolutely horrible, and it just got worse as the film went
They,
along.
it seemed to me like they had a child in a role and then they realized, right, we can't really stand this kid.
No.
Who is this? Because I'm sorry, but the best thing, this is enough, it just gets on my nerves. Of all the characters that they really messed up the Flash, because they could have just had an older version of the Flash come back in time.
Yes.
They didn't even need Ezra Miller to be in this film. They needed Ezra Miller to be in the Flash movie. They could have had the role of. They're doing it now with Ben Affleck and Michael Keaton.
Yeah, we're getting that.
So, are you telling me? Because you can't tell me that you can't tell it. Even though Wonder Woman gal looks young, you know she's thousands of years old. No
Absolutely.
statement on how old Arthur Curry is. No even statement on how old. We don't know if Affleck's taking serum to. We don't know how old these characters are. Yeah, most of these characters are either over 100 years old or they're definitely over 50 years old in this series. And
Well,
you've got this child.
yeah.
You've got a half-dead robot who's got the mind of like a 7,000-year-old like Tesseract box or whatever it is. It's all mad. Ezra does not fit in this movie as a child. Young kid, and they treated him like it as well.
I
Like, what
think
are you doing here? Like, you know what I mean? You're too young to even know what the hell's going on here.
if I was in charge of casting and they said to me, what about Ezra Miller as the Flash? My first reaction would be absolutely not. Shall I tell you who I'd cast him as? One half of the Wonder Twins.
Yeah, that would have been better because you're getting children, yeah?
Yeah,
And I
because
know
they
the
had
Flash is
kids.
young in his own universe, but my statement would be, whose idea was it to have a young version of the Flash in this version of the Justice League? Could have
Or
been any
better,
version of the Flash.
or better yet, if you're not going to make him Barry Allen, make him Wally West, make him the Kid Flash.
Mm.
You
Or
know,
at least make it so that you've got a young guy that has got, like you said, in his year and a half of becoming the Flash, this guy has been through like 50 years of travel because of his speed. So he's gone through different universes. But once again, we needed the Flash movie before Justice League. Out of all of the characters, even we didn't get a Cyborg one, it wasn't necessary for Cyborg. But I
no.
am telling you now, the Flash movie will be key. You and I will both sit there by the end of the Flash movie when it comes out, and we will both say, why on earth did this film not come out like 5 years ago?
I know.
Makes no sense that this film is coming out now. The alterations that they've had to make to that film, are we just going to be sitting here in 3 years' time talking the same stuff? Why
That's
did they
it.
not just go with this film from the start? Why was this film not 2018, 2019 like it was supposed to have been? I understand that they realized very, very soon after they made all this that Ezra wasn't exactly the most reliable,
No,
young man out there.
no.
But
That
I
will be
just I
touched
just feel
upon in
like
the future
I just feel
review.
like this film, and I think you'll probably agree, this film is definitely responsible for Ezra's downfall and swings and mayhem, because what has he been in since they locked him in this role?
He hasn't been in anything.
Because
I,
they've had him under contract at Warner Brothers and with this thing.
yeah, I mean,
Exclusivity to him, and then you don't let him act, you don't let him live his life, you don't let him do this, but you're not letting him. They must have treated him like a 6-year-old of this movie. Oh, your movie's not coming out now. Your movie's not coming out
but he
now.
didn't do himself. He didn't do himself a lot of favors either.
No, he didn't.
Superman in this movie, obviously, we know that he was brought back from the dead, and he was showcased as being powerful, and he manhandled the Justice League, which was good. One scene I cringed at was actually it was two scenes. Um, was after Batman got knocked out, he sent flying on the police car. You see Batman laying there saying, "Something is definitely bleeding." I just thought, no, no, what have you done? What have you done to the best Batman ever we've seen in recent years? My Batman wouldn't say that. My Batman,
No sign at all of anything that took place in the Dawn of Justice.
no.
How did you come out on top of this guy? But yet now you and 4 other powered people are unable to subdue this guy. Utter horse crap. I am telling you this now. I have never been so frustrated. At the time, I remember watching this in the movies and genuinely being unbelievably mad and angry because it took so long to actually. Well, it didn't even get subdued. They just had to come to some kind of like truce, didn't they?
Yeah, yeah. After they were arguing about whether to bring Superman back or not, and they did. Like, it was mainly Bruce Wayne was pushing for it. And so this is the writing part that I really had an issue with, because I've read a lot of the Batman comics. I've watched a lot of the animated series. Batman would be dead against bringing someone back from the dead. There should have been a line in there saying, "Well, hang on a minute. I met a guy. Don't have to say his name. So I met a guy who lived around for 600 years, and he could bring people back from the dead. I've seen what this can do. Do we know what we're doing here? This isn't like the pits.
Yeah,
This we're
and there's
dealing
no
with.
way that Batman could have got to that age there without,
Yeah, but if he's a Batman that's been around
experiencing that
20
because of the Ra's al
years,
Ghul thing.
yeah, but
Because of the Ra's al Ghul thing, yeah.
if he's a Batman that's been around for 20 plus years, he should have mentioned that. So, well, hang on a minute. I've seen what the pits can do. This is not the pits. This is something totally different. Do
You're
we know what
not
we're
just
doing?
bringing back a human either. You're bringing back an alien.
Exactly.
And I hate the fact that we're still like Smallville. They seem to have understood that you can't let Clark's secret out because no matter what, he will always be seen as an alien. And they were right. People would
Exactly.
always see Superman as an alien. because even if he's got powers, he wasn't born here.
No.
At least with the meta-humans, which is the reason why that's a word or why that's a thing. At least with the meta-humans, they were born on this earth. Whether they got powers or not, they were born on this earth. They're still human people. It's the other side of it that really gets me head scratching, like what you've just said then. That decision there goes against a lot of the morals. But then once again, it's just bad scripting. It's because they decided to go with something. Even if it was written in the actual comic itself, I will be 100% sure and say that would have been the only thing that I think fans would have had no problem having no problem with. As in, like, remove the Superman death out of the movie because it was a ridiculous decision to kill him.
Yeah, they should never have killed him off. That should have been saved years down the line.
Yeah.
I think.
Or it should have been one of those death resurrected in the same movie things.
Nah. I don't think so.
As in, like, you think he's been beaten by someone, but he's not quite beaten. There's a way of getting him back in the game. Because it happened, it was like, hold on a minute, Bruce, you was the one who did this to him. You know what I mean? Like,
I think if I was writing that scene, I would have kept that scene where they were trying to resurrect him and it didn't work. Maybe, okay, guys, well, we tried to bring him back and it didn't work, so we'll just leave it. And you see the mother box is still glowing because it needs a charge. So maybe later on in that same scene, they're fighting Steppenwolf, who we'll get to in a minute. They could fight Steppenwolf. Steppenwolf shoots out electricity. Wonder Woman knocks him out, but accidentally, a charge of Steppenwolf's electricity hits Superman's grave, and you see him punch out of the coffin, just like in the comics, and you see him fly out all like an angry god mode, like something out of Dragon Ball Z. Eyes glowing red, long black hair, and big humongous beard, just in full on angry god mode. So basically, he's brought back to life by accident by apocalyptic power instead of the technology that they were all trying to use to bring him back. It would have made for more powerful moments. Like everyone could have looked up in the sky and just see, oh crap, Superman's awake and he's not happy. And he just takes out everyone. And I mean, not just the Justice League, everyone.
Well, like I said, it's also the the Steppenwolf situation where it didn't seem like a big enough threat for the powers that he had.
No.
Plus, you always knew from kind of early on that he's not the big bad. And that just left me infuriated. Like, if we're struggling to beat this guy, and I understand they were building this doom and gloom effect, but they made why would Superman need any of you now? You're clearly not capable of doing nothing to help this situation. So best thing to do is just back off. If anything, just send Diana. She might be able to help. The rest of you just back off. Because this guy is clearly too strong for any of you. No threat should have come to any of these situations without there being 100% of like the dark side and forces, all of those characters that we got to have seen in the Snyder Cut version where we got to see the battlefield, the ancient battlefield. We should have got multiple people fighting. You know what I mean? Like, the guy had armies of people, but you're trying to lead us now to say that 100 years later, the Earth has got champions, but a guy like Darkseid can just send one person to the Earth with a load of parademons, and then none of the Earth's heroes that have managed to put a stop to all sorts of them type of things over the years, they cannot deal with this one character.
No, that's true. But yeah, I mean, I love Superman, but I just felt the way they handled him in the movie, apart from the first half, it just was odd because they couldn't make their mind up. What did they want Superman to be? Do they want him to be this angry god mode sort of guy, or do they want him to be the Christopher Reeve, optimistic, nice guy sort of Superman? Because they just couldn't make their mind up.
He should have been the one that was fighting against Steppenwolf, but sort of losing, and then no one was helping him. And then you realize that it's because he's an alien. They're not helping him because he's an alien. Even though he's saved hundreds of people, thousands of people before, they're not helping him because he's not human. And they feel that this is a fight between aliens. And that's something that, of course, Batman's like, no, we need to help him. Or I need to help him. So Batman helps him. And then you've got, of course, Diana. And she's like, right, well, I've helped before, so I'm going to come out and I'm going to help them now. And then they're still getting beat. And then it's like, right, well, we need an extra little bit of help here. We need somebody who's fast, somebody who can have something that creates something, who needs to be in the water. And then you need to have somebody who's very, very smart and intelligent. Bada bing, bada boom, bada bang. This all should have been started from Dawn of Justice. They shouldn't have wasted Dawn of Justice as what it was. It should have been a Batman movie, and it should have led to all of these decisions that we have now. Then we should have got a Superman movie that then Superman got himself in peril and issues, and someone came to the Earth to fight him because it was some kind of alien takeover situation. And then we've got what I just said then, separate movies that lead into something that leads into a massive Big Bang event where you've got these 6 characters, potentially 7 if you add in the Green Lantern, and you've got this team of people that can actually fight against these people, that actually know each other's weaknesses, flaws, and, could be easily led by someone like the information that you could get from someone like Alfred or Lucius Fox, or someone like it could easily be, this is how you all can work together. This is how you Fantastic Four it, and your powers all combine, and Batman can do this stuff. This is how they needed to do this. All this was just rushed into like a 45-minute segment of the film that made absolutely zero sense, because we had no idea who the villains were, or any of the people that were coming after, why they were coming, or where they came from. Took me about 6 times of watching the movie to actually work out that those boxers were what they were looking for to build their own world on the Earth. I thought they were just looking for some random, like, higher power. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, as I said, it just was weird, the whole thing. And even Bruce Wayne in this movie, you look at Dawn of Justice, super serious guy, got his head on straight, 100% focused. Here, it's like they couldn't make their mind up, right? Do you want him to be the badass Batman, or do you want him to be a complete goofball? Like that bit where he said to Aquaman, "Oh, so tell me, do you actually talk to fish? Do you do that thing? You talk to fish?" And you just think, no, what the hell is this? And he got Flash in the background saying, "I'm really hungry."
Yeah, they had TV series moments that were in this film.
Yeah.
Moments that you would get episode 12 into the Justice League series were put into this film, and they should have never been put into this film. Like, at no point, if we're going to just jump through who and what and why these are their team, we shouldn't be getting random questions like that. You just said, like, can you actually talk to the animal? We shouldn't even be getting that.
Yeah, you should have already known.
Or at least we should be getting a scene which shows Aquaman being the most badass person, and then right at the end, it's like, I could talk to them, Like, that's all you need. You don't need the Ben Affleck having any point of it. What he should be is observational to everything.
Yes,
because that's what Batman would be like.
Well, if he's a Batman that's supposed to have been around for over 20 plus years, he would know everything. Or at least
he knows the guy can breathe underwater, so you know what I mean?
Yeah, I know. And another thing as well, and I know because this movie's all over the place. We're not like skimming across anything. It's just this movie is actually all over the place. That's why we're going all different areas in this movie. So my advanced apologies if everyone thinks that we're just going all over the place. This film is actually all over the place. Yeah, I mean, there's even a part where, after Superman's come back and he says that line to Batman, "Oh, I knew you bring me back from the dead was not because you liked me." And Batman's standing there with like, this weird look on his face, like, "I not don't I."
Yeah, there's a couple of times when Ben Affleck, I think he's trying to look like, oh shit, I've been caught, but he actually ends up looking like,
worse.
You look like you do not know what the hell you are talking about right now.
Now,
like, a lot of this is just guesswork, isn't it, Batman?
Now, if this had happened in the animated series, let's say they did an episode where Superman was brought back from the dead, and Superman sees Batman first, and he says, "Oh, hey, Bruce. So I take it you bring me back from the dead was not because you missed me." My Batman, Kevin Conroy Batman, would have turned around and said, the world needed Superman. I was just playing my part. We've got a job to do," or something like that. He wouldn't like get all smug. "Yeah, it's good to see you, Superman." He said, "Ken, There's no time for this. We've got a job to do. Okay, just saying. So you didn't miss me at all, did you? And
I
then
mean, I
Batman
will
was
say there are times in this film where I felt like it was like you could have actually added in like the old Batman like suspense to leading up to the kaboom and power noises. You know, like
yeah.
the violin squeaks and stuff like that. Honestly, I'm not even joking. There's moments in this film where I'm just watching, I'm thinking, and I've got flashbacks where I can't remember what film it's from, and then I think, no, it's from the Justice League, isn't it? It's like that doesn't make any sense that that scene is even part of the Justice League. Like looking back now, it's almost like someone's taken the comic book of the origins of the Justice League and taken out the most obscure bits of what that will work in the movie. All the bits that actually piece it together and make it seem like it's like this is how they became the Justice League are null and void and absent.
Well, this is going to be a silly thing I'm going to come out with. This is about the origin, and I'm thank God they didn't put this in the film. The origin of the Justice League in the comics, they were formed because they had to stop a meteorite turning the entire world into trees.
I don't know if that. I think that would have worked a bit better than what we got here.
Well, that was something
If
they
they'd have
didn't
changed the
do.
meteorite into an actual person that had powers of like elemental powers that could potentially have changed the Earth into some kind of greenhouse atmosphere, which would have been
That's
better
what
for the
it
Earth's
is.
atmosphere. But then imagine it would have instantly, because we all know the theory of what it happens. More trees means more air. Means obviously then they can breathe a thicker air. Invasion alert.
Yeah, I mean, this film with this film there's a lot of things they cut out. Obviously, like originally we were supposed to get Superman in the black suit. They brought him back in the traditional red and blue, and Steppenwolf was portrayed as a buffoon. They over sexualized Gal Gadot's Wonder Woman too much. Shots of her butt. You know, Gal Gadot's
Couldn't really
attractive.
figure out what Steppenwolf actually was
Yeah,
supposed to look like or be. It
Batman.
definitely had to look him up in the comics to see what this guy was supposed to look like. Surely this guy
Well, I
can't
mean,
look like this.
Steppenwolf in the comic books and even in the Superman the animated series, in the comic book, Steppenwolf looked more like a man with a dog head. That was what he looked like originally, and in the cartoon, he looked more like a Chinese Mandarin. Like, but and he was not. I think he was Darkseid's uncle in the comics and the cartoons. But here, they didn't have a clue what to do with him, and it was just a mess. Ben Affleck's Batman went from being one of the best things about the movie to being one of the not the worst, but just one of the silliest things of the movie. The worst character of the whole movie was Ezra Miller's the Flash. It was just garbage. And that's coming from a Flash fan. It was just pure garbage. Cyborg, they didn't know what they were doing with him. Aquaman, to his credit, Aquaman, bless Jason Momoa, he did try to carry this film, but yeah, I'm afraid it just wasn't happening. Now we get as we're moving along here because we're going to get close to potentially wrapping this up. We get two post-credit scenes for this one. I'm going to talk about the first one, and I'm going to let you have the second one because it's got your man in this second post-credit scene. Now, in the first post-credit scene, we get a race between the Flash and Superman. I actually quite like this because I was a big fan of the episode they did in Superman the animated series where they had a race. Now, I think this could have led to the Flash movie. So maybe they have the race, leads into the Flash movie. Flash gets an emergency, gets called up in Central City, and says, "Oh, listen, I've got to go, Clark. We'll finish this some other time." And Superman says, "Okay, sure, no problem, done." But I quite like that. Bit on the silly side, but it appealed to the geek in me. But I quite enjoyed it for what it was. I thought it was quite fun. Now, the second scene, post-credit scene, I'm going to hand this over to you. This featured your man. What did you think of it?
Firstly, best part of the entire DC extended universe, this 3 or 4 or 5 minute scene on this boat is the greatest thing that we have seen. Because
Yes.
the fact is this is the only thing that actually made sense in the whole of the Justice League. Now, why this was coming after the Justice League, it's still head scratchy because I'm going to say this now. I actually think that DC heard that Marvel was piecing together films and doing films, filming here, filming there, because of the way that the Avengers films turned out. Some of the footage that was filmed wasn't for Avengers, it was for other films that they were filming in and around the time that were going to be released with the other characters. I
That's right.
feel that they just threw loads of stuff into the bin. This should have been the first opening scene of the film that then was, because this was supposed to be the Batman film, clearly.
Yeah,
This
yeah,
was
it
supposed to
was.
be
It was.
the Batman, where he fights Deathstroke. And I am going to be honest, till I go in the grave, I will say that this is the biggest missed opportunity in comic book film history. The fact that they did not go with this, because this could have saved this universe, but they knew what we know now. What sense did this film make coming after the Justice League?
None whatsoever. I mean, it was a good, as you say, it was a very good scene.
Incredible scene. But
Oh,
this should
absolutely.
have come after Batman versus Superman.
Yes. This should have been the post-credit scene.
This had nothing to do with any of the members of the Justice League, apart from the two that came before and the two that you know. This is why I'm saying this scene could not have been filmed for this film. This
No.
post-credit scene was put in there because they'd already filmed it, and it was probably supposed to be the post-credit film scene to some film that was supposed to feature Batman that wasn't based around Batman versus the Joker. Something was supposed to have happened. I said this to you about a year ago, Walk, if you remember. Something was supposed to have happened here. After Dawn of Justice, before any of this, something was supposed to have taken place. Now, I don't know if that was Batman's cameos in the Flash movie, in, potentially in an Aquaman movie. I don't know where they were going here, but there is a film missing here. We know that the Flash film's missing. We know
Yeah.
that the Aquaman film should have come before this film. Now, obviously, you'd probably pinpoint and say maybe some kind of film that involves Cyborg with Batman. Fair enough. That would have made the most sense to have built his character, because obviously I don't think he would have been able to have sustained a movie on his own as just the character that he is. That's the one character that I will not argue for a standalone movie, and that's why he didn't get one, and he's not going to get one. But there is definitely a film missing that should have taken place with that Deathstroke scene at the end. So that even if the Justice League happens, you know that the next time that you get to see Batman on screen, he was going to fight against Deathstroke. But they took that for granted, Warhawk, because
Oh,
they
absolutely.
knew that that scene could be used anywhere. So they saved it and then gave it to us, and then never gave us the actual movie, because they burnt Affleck out with this mind-boggling Justice League universe where nobody knew whether they were coming or going. And honestly, that scene there will always symbolize to me just the greatest and biggest missed opportunity. And it symbolizes exactly what Warner Brothers and DC are and always will be. They just don't know what they're doing.
Well, one thing with that scene, which is slightly different to the Zack Snyder's Justice League. Now, in the Zack Snyder Justice League movie, obviously, as we know, that was to set up a Batman versus Deathstroke movie, which we all know would have been epic. Now, in this one, the setup was Lex Luthor and Deathstroke were to form their own Legion of Doom, because Lex Luthor says at the end, shouldn't we have a league of our own? So obviously there was as you said before, there was a plan to have a movie. We'll never
Yeah,
know
but
what.
they were already building something. There's no way that they could have fought Doomsday in Batman versus Superman, which obviously Lex Luthor was responsible for this stuff, yeah?
Yes.
So you got to imagine the league was already there, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Oh, they're building some kind of league, some kind of team. Maybe we should build some kind of team,
Yeah.
because you obviously want to take care of the Batman, yeah?
Yes.
Yes, I want to take care of the Batman. You leave him to me. Right, well, what I need to do is I need to go and find other people who don't like this woman, because he doesn't like Superman.
No.
Deathstroke's going to focus on Batman. we know that they're potentially finding new people because clearly Lex Luthor's got eyes in the sky, whatever. This could have led to something immense. The Justice League should not have come before this. Either way, this could have just been a 3-minute mini short, like what Marvel filmed in the mid 2010s. One of those like short clips where they just said, this is what's coming next. Like, honestly, I feel like of all the positionings of where they could have positioned this trailer, this post credits, it's like 3.5 minutes. And honestly, it is the best 3.5 minutes that they managed to come up with mentally. And it is one of the only things that will never come to the big screen. Because we'll never get this now, will we?
No, probably not. I mean, I know there's been talk of trying to maybe get it on HBO Max in some shape or form, but I think that
did they actually film scenes to this Batman movie then?
As far as I know, they never filmed anything. I think the only thing they did was like a screenshot test thing where they had Joe Manganiello in the Deathstroke suit coming out of the helicopter, which was teased at Comic-Con a number of years ago. That was what Ben Affleck's show goes, right, I'm going to show everyone who's going to be the bad guy in my new Batman film. I said, okay, let's see it. And then you see Deathstroke coming out of the helicopter and the whole place just went completely nuts. It just is absolutely...
I went nuts. This was a WrestleMania, like a rival.
It was like WrestleMania.
Like, this was a big bad. This was an end game.
So he's the big
before the end game. You know what I mean? This was... I could have accepted... Like, honestly, look at it now. Like I said earlier on in the thing, this should have come first. And then the Justice League should have come now.
Yes, now
we should be going into the Justice League now. And then as soon as they have the Justice League, that's when you start bringing in characters like the Blue Beetle to the DC universe. Is it just me?
No.
Is it just me who genuinely sees how forget the pandemic as well? How did we go wrong here? How have we had another Wonder Woman film, but yet we never got the Flash film?
No,
because it should have gone Batman versus Superman, something, then the Aquaman film, then the Flash film, then something else, then the Justice League film.
Yes.
I don't know what those two somethings were supposed to be, but they were definitely supposed to feature Batman fighting against Deathstroke. And it was definitely, I mean, we had a Batman movie last year, obviously, called The Batman. That we know what that film was supposed to have been, but it certainly shouldn't have been then. 2018 would have been when that film should have been. But to have this Justice League film in 2017 is, to this day, beyond the Green Lantern's badness and what that actually was, beyond Catwoman and the atrocity that was.
Oh, dear.
This was worse because of everything that it was and was supposed to have been. And they rushed it. This was like going from opening segment to main event championship match in the same episode of, you know, a meaningless Monday Night Raw, nowhere near WrestleMania, or you know what I mean?
Yeah, you know,
you don't do that. You don't pull the trigger that quickly like that, and it really affected what this was.
You know, this movie's really bad when you say it's worse than the Green Lantern.
Well, because it wasn't a worse movie to watch, because obviously this is like, you know, regardless of what these films are, these team up films, it's gonna be difficult to get everybody's thingy, but they didn't do this. They didn't do this like Ant-Man.
No.
You know, this is this random character who you might not know, but we're gonna surround him with loads of other people who you're gonna know. But we're gonna make him stand out enough. To this day, I still, even watching the recent Ant-Man film, a little bit like, a little bit too much comedy here. Yeah, a little bit too much comedy with this guy, this Paul Rudd guy, yeah? But then you know what you're getting with his character, though, don't you? Yeah.
Yes.
Whereas in this, they tried to build 6 real badass crime fighting, alien fighting people, and it just blended like mixing a load of random ingredients into a bowl and then saying, "I'll taste this."
Well, I mean, this film did have some couple of good points, but yeah, by and large, it was.
You're never going to get all bad, though, are you, in any of these films?
No,
we can
no,
never
no,
sit here and say that these
complete.
films are all bad. We have to mock these superhero films Like, let's be fair, even going back to and I've said this, Batman Forever and Batman and Robin, they weren't completely unwatchable. If they were on TV and I wasn't doing anything, I'd still watch them to this day because
Yeah,
it still features the characters that I like.
and there were some
However,
good points to it. As bad as those films were, there was some good stuff that you think, yeah,
yeah, there
this.
was some good stuff there, and you hadn't had you have when you suspend your disbelief, you know that they were being filmed when there was nothing else to actually compete with them.
No, that's
Whereas
correct.
now there's no excuse. Like they're putting stuff on the screen. And DC, once again, very much in the eyes of the wrestling world, DC has managed to somehow claw its way over the last year or so back into where you would, Shazam wasn't a terrible movie. They've managed to somehow present presentable stuff, which is all they ever had to really do. But I just worry that this Flash movie is going to leave people like me and you even more head scratching. Like, why was this not 4 years ago?
Yeah,
We obviously know the production thing. We know you spent a lot of money on this film, so that's why we're getting it now. You don't want to just waste it. We understand you technically have to literally close your eyes and say, right. So when the Justice League finishes, the moment it finishes, when you open your eyes next, this film's going to start. That's what I'm presuming that they're going to want you to just stop and basically think, right, where was this universe in 2017, 2018? Or maybe it will just be nothing. Like he'll have to travel around and all that type of stuff, so it will be set where you're seeing things from the past. Who knows until the film actually arrives? But I just feel like people like me and you are going to end up either way just looking at that and saying, why on earth was this film not 5 years ago?
exactly. Yeah, that's true. Well, I think if I had to choose scenes before we do our rating, I think if I had to choose three favorite scenes I liked of this movie, um, I like the opening scene with Batman chasing after the parademon. I thought that was quite good, and the two post-credit scenes, I thought they were good as well. I thought they were good. What were your top three favorite scenes of this
I mean, the
movie?
post-credit scene with Deathstroke was definitely the best part of the movie, bar none.
Oh yeah,
Uh,
totally. I put that
to
up
be
there.
honest, I did like the battle between Steppenwolf when he was fighting against the different forces like the Amazonians, and when he fought
Yeah,
with the Atlanteans. I liked the thought of that. They weren't executed perfectly, but I liked what I seen. It was
yeah,
almost like a sneak attack, wasn't it? Like he just came out of nowhere, boom! I want what I want, but they knew it was coming. But he
yeah,
just came anyway. Like you knew he was a bad. You know, he might not have been a big bad, but he was definitely up there with the people that were gonna cause a problem, and he was coming at them no matter what. So I
yeah.
enjoyed those scenes with Steppenwolf. After that, it got a little bit head scratchy once they actually entered him in there as right. So he is actually the guy that we're fighting against. And to be honest, and I'm gonna say this was mad. This is mad to think about this, but I really enjoyed the scenes between, well, the personal scenes between Bruce and Barry. I feel like if you pause the movie, then you would have never thought that this would have ended up going where it's gone, because
No,
you could pause the movie at the Barry and Bruce scene, and then the Flash movie could start. But if you
yeah, yeah,
pause there,
yeah,
everything starts to make a little bit more sense, doesn't it?
yeah.
So looking forward now, like I say, because I have to keep linking this to what you can tell, obviously, and I will get to watch the Flash a little bit earlier than most people, and you can tell in my mind, I'm confused because it's like I know that this is going to be pitched in, and it once again, all roads lead back to the fact that the Flash movie should have already been out by now. And I
Totally.
feel like the scenes between Barry and Bruce, I'm really looking forward to seeing what they do in this next movie, because I'm sure that that's where if you pause the Justice League movie at the scene between Barry and at the end of the scene between Barry and Bruce, and then if you watch the Flash movie, then things will start to align a little bit more for Barry and Bruce. So yeah, they're my three top favorite scenes. The definitely the things that weird because most of them involve Batman, obviously.
Of
Like,
course.
but yeah, those scenes they because what else can you take from this movie?
I did like the Bruce and Diana stuff. Reminded me of the animated series. I thought they
Yeah,
were,
the only reason I didn't rate rank that is because of where they've gone. There's absolutely no sign now that there was this semi sort of attraction,
Yeah,
weird thing going off between
still like
Bruce
it.
and because all they've done, I mean, I like it, don't get me wrong, but all they've done since then is retcon Diana into this lovesick puppy who's with Steve.
Yeah,
Doesn't like anybody else except Steve, really. But I feel like once again, if those movies would have come when they supposed to have came, Bruce could have picked up as the Steve Trevor character before they started the production into Wonder Woman 1984. It would have made more sense if, and then obviously, like I said, if this universe works out the way that I work it out, that film there is a film where Diana uses Bruce's help to be able to do certain things in her second movie.
yes.
Once again, that movie that I said was missing, that could have been that movie. You haven't yet got all of them together, but in that movie there, you know, Diana maybe Clark can't help her. Diana goes to Bruce. Bruce helps her. Bruce says, "Oh, there's a few other people who might be able to help." Gets a few bit more help. Bish bash bosh. Boom. 2022. That was the end of, or 2022. By 2023, you know you're leading into the Justice League film, and you're like, right. So what can they actually do rather than we now know we're standing here 5 years later and saying, yeah, like they had some things there that they never followed up on. The good stuff. You look at
There's a
all
lot
the
of stuff.
good stuff that we're on about now, Warhawk. It's all the stuff that they never followed up on.
There's plenty of those.
So it means that, in hindsight, we're looking at this as in everything that they filmed that they didn't follow up on was the good stuff. But everything that they kind of followed up on was like, what have you done here? Like,
I
no.
know, I know. So before we wrap this up, Rex and I are going to give our rating on this Justice League movie. Rex, what are you giving it? You go first.
I mean, if I was to rank the Justice League film that came out with the Snyder version, the bits that make a lot more sense, the extra bits that kind of fit in there, even with the end bit, that film was at least a 6, 7, maybe a bit better. But this is like a 4, 5. The pieces don't fit well together. I can't just look at all of the bits that I thought were pretty decent from the Snyder Cut and say, oh yeah, well, they did what they did with them. No, some of those scenes, they absolutely destroyed the imagery and movement of the scenes. And once again, like I said, I felt like some of those scenes were very fast, like they were sped up, almost like the pitch of the scene was sped up to fit a more faster paced movie when this movie should have been very slowly built, very intensely built to this Steppenwolf guy and them having to come together and defeat Steppenwolf and then finding out that he's not the big bad. There's actually somebody else who's the big bad. So yeah, a 4 is the highest I can rate this film.
I'm going to give this film 4 as well, if I'm truly honest. I mean, I haven't watched it in a while now, but just talking about it with you and remembering certain things, yeah, I will give this a 4 as well.
Without the Snyder Cut, it could have been potentially a higher rating because I would have felt more accepted towards a bad movie that I didn't have all the other factors, production problems and all that involved.
Yeah.
But looking back at it now, hindsight, they basically took a pretty decent movie that was a 5, 6 out of 10, and they added bits into it that made it much worse, unwatchable at times, nonsensical, and just unnecessarily comedic. And once again, I'm going to use the same word I used earlier on, marvelized. They went too far with that Marvel mix and master, and it just did not work.
Yeah, definitely had all Marvel's DNA all over this.
If you've got guys that are building a universe, whether they're rushing it or not, if you've got guys that are building a universe that's based on another universe, they're obviously going to try to build it completely alternative to what that universe is going to be built like. So to bring in somebody who's almost been on the inside of that universe, that's a stupid decision in itself as well. I know what they thought they were doing, but they're almost, it's Vince Russo going to WCW. You're almost inviting the enemy over to ruin what you've already got, whether it's good or not.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. This was definitely a 4 out of 10 for me.
I mean, if you hadn't have seen the Snyder Cut,
yeah,
I'd be more favorable towards this film.
Yeah,
not because I'm being harsh because of any personal things. It's mainly Warner Brothers and DC. Their decision making has always cost the fans. And this is just another classic example of their bad choices and decision making and money grabbing, because they'd wasted so much money that they'd made and then lost again. It led to poor decisions and poor screen things, and then basically saying, well, we know we're going to get money because the butts are already in seats anyway.
Yeah, I know, but it doesn't always work like that, though.
Yeah, in hindsight, it doesn't work like that, because you've got people like me and you who can sit here and say, this was bad, wasn't it?
Well, it's not even just say we sit there and say it's bad. It's like, okay, what about this? Or what about that? You know, we're like one of the few guys, and maybe even Holiday as well, who point out to these things. I say, well, hang on a second. This doesn't make sense. Explain that. You know, it's a movie. Just
We're doing it. There is no way that the traditional purist comic book fans were happy with this.
Oh, absolutely not. Not for a second. I know for a fact.
For a DC fan, you're not necessarily a Marvel fan. Some people, it's the WCW, WWE thing. You will just watch one because you are loyal to that. Now, I've never been caught up in that. I just like these comic book characters and films, etc. But my word, this I can see this more than any film I've ever watched. This is the Vince Russo 2000 era of WCW. I can see it.
Oh, no.
When I watch this. If I put these two films side to side, I can see it. Like it's like I'm wearing Roddy Piper's glasses from They Live. You can just see someone's touched this that should not be in the room.
Exactly.
Somebody's put things in this sandwich that are not vegan or not gluten-free, or, you know, something. Somebody's sabotaged this sandwich. I honestly, maybe I'm wrong, but you can't tell me that Joss Whedon sits there and happily rubs his fingers together and says, yeah, I made something good here.
Oh, no.
And he can't blame Snyder, because I've seen what Snyder did with this film.
Yeah.
Is there any word on what Joss Whedon?
From my
did he have
understanding,
anything to say about this? Anything?
I think the most he's ever said was that he was trying to make a good movie. I think that's the most he ever said. But apparently,
I'll solidly say that he's not worked for Warner Brothers since then. Yeah.
no, and he's been in a lot of he's been in a lot of trouble since then. You know, people have pulled him up on certain things that have gone down behind the scenes, and even Ben Affleck said that he didn't enjoy making this movie, and I think that's what pushed him into drinking even more heavily.
Well, yeah, he blamed the production of the Justice League movie, and
His alcohol,
because Lord knows what they were turning that Batman film into.
Yeah, I mean, he even said that his experience, he had a better experience with Zack Snyder and Batman v Superman. He said he enjoyed doing that more than this Justice League movie with Joss Whedon. He said it was a nightmare.
Because there was an issue between him and Buffy the Vampire Slayer, wasn't there? He had some issues with her, didn't he? Yeah, because he was the guy.
Well, it's never been really
which another reason that I heard him, like, that's the difference. When you're 12 and you're watching a program like Buffy or Angel, you can get mystified into believing that what you're seeing is scarier than it is. Once you put a guy like that who's had certain amount of success in that, I'm just going to say it outright, because this is where the wrestling analogy keeps coming in. It's basically like putting lights over something that is supposed to be a bit spooky. It's not going to seem as spooky, is it, if it's like inside of a lit room? No. You know what I mean? Like you walk down a corridor into a creepy room in a haunted house and it's dark and you can't see it and something's trying to touch you. You're going to be a lot more spooked out than you are if you walk around and all the lights are on.
Yeah,
and this is the thing with this. It seemed like somebody had gone to a dark world and turned the lights on, like for like 2 hours. Honestly, I'm just saying it now. And now looking, it's obvious that this guy is not the nicest character. This Josh, I mean, he's not the nicest character. I'm sure that there's a lot of people that would listen to this and say, you know what, I solely blame him. I mean, I would put more blame towards Warner Brothers and DC.
Oh yeah, they take the ultimate.
And we've seen them do this before. Yeah.
Yeah.
But this is the one where I feel that even the most insane, paranoid DC fan could potentially say this was sabotage. Because how could anyone get a movie with these characters so just every swing of the bat misses. You know what I mean? Every swing misses the ball, and the ball is the size of a beach ball when you've got characters like Batman and Superman. How can you get it so wrong? You're not dealing with the budget of, Superman 2. You're dealing with
No,
big money and big production. And it's the reason why we've not had anything really positive to say about this film. I will say that I know that post-credit scene was not filmed for this movie, and it's the best part of this movie, and it's obviously why.
the Flash post-credit scene with Superman and their race was a good scene, but
if it would have led into the Flash movie being,
if it led into the
it
Flash
should have
movie,
been.
yeah, that's what.
Once again, should they not have been the post-credit scenes after Dawn of Justice? Like,
the Deathstroke scene definitely. I'm not sure about the Flash because that I'm not.
I feel like that would have been, even looking at it now, I feel like you're seeing it as well. You're even saying it now. The disconnect that we've got with Barry Allen is because he's looking for like a dad, an older guy to mentor him because his dad's in jail and all that type of stuff. But because we didn't get the Flash, is so key. Warhawk, I swear to you, the Flash movie is literally the keyhole to this universe working. Yeah. How these people could not sit there in a room and understand this film has to take place to make any of this make. They will all suspend their disbelief regardless of what you put on the screen. But this has to happen before any of that can even make one iota of sense to any casual fan of DC and Marvel.
Absolutely.
And I know, obviously, like you said, the Flash scene couldn't have really taken place, Superman and the Flash, because he didn't know him. But then it's just another reason, like I said, why did we have to have Barry just randomly inserted into the universe? Yeah, you give us a Flash film, that could be the post-credit scene for the Flash film, couldn't it?
Yeah, he runs into Superman, so let's have a race, Superman.
I've heard about you. You know what I mean? That type of stuff.
I've heard you're fast.
Then, of course, you don't need to kill Superman in Dawn of Justice.
No, you could have had a post-credit scene say, I've heard about you. I've heard you're fast. Fancy a race?
Or better yet still, when Wonder Woman, Bruce, and when Bruce and Diana are talking, they can be talking to Clark, and boom, Barry comes out of the TV screen. You know what I mean? Like, why did we not get these things? There would be even the most simple things sometimes will connect the story way better.
Totally. Absolutely.
And I want to sit there after the Flash movie and not just talk about the Flash itself. I want to talk about how key that, because I know everything, even just from the trailers, everything that you have to sit there and watch for 2 hours with this Flash film is just going to make you say, why was this film not 5 years ago? And this is exactly where they could have gone after this film. Branch it out into multiple films and then link it all back into the Justice League at the end. Rather than linking it all into the Justice League and then branching out into all these random films.
I know. Yeah, well, we'll never know, really. We don't know how these people's minds work. It's a shame, really, because they had all the tools and all the potential to be successful, and they just failed miserably. And to quote a certain Green Archer, you have failed this universe.
Yeah, I mean, apart from Wonder Woman, of course, and I think more than likely Aquaman will get a successful film, which we'll see.
Which we will get into in future reviews. We'll
see what Aquaman's film turns out to be.
Yeah, definitely.
But once again, going to be confusing when you're watching Aquaman later on Christmas Day this year, and it's 6 months after the Flash movie comes out, but those films are clearly going to be set about 6 years apart in universe terms.
Well.
But then maybe it will give you a refresher when Aquaman comes around. You know what I mean? Because that's obviously that film's going to have to land somewhere after, I believe, the Justice League.
Yeah, it will have to at some point. But we'll see, really. So that's going to be it from us. We are going to wrap this up now. What was your thoughts on the Joss Whedon version of the Justice League movie? Do you agree with me and Rex? Do you give this a 4 out of 10, or do you give it even lower? Do you have any favorite scenes? Or if not, is there any scenes you didn't like? And what was the best part of this movie? Who was your favorite part of this movie? Who do you think carried this movie? You know what to do, guys. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, leave your thoughts and comments down below. Rex, this was a pleasure as always.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure, and I appreciate everyone who is listening.
So until next time, take care, everybody, and stay safe. And once again, as always, much appreciated. Thanks for listening.